Every time anyone asks me, Blessing, how is your pregnancy going? Hope there are no problems. I am always very quick to say, oh yes, thanks for asking. I am fine. Pregnancy is going on well and there are no concerns. And this is not just a cliche answer. This is actually the truth because there are no concerns. However, all of that changed a few weeks ago when my pregnancy went from a healthy pregnancy to a high-risk pregnancy. And the truth is, this is not actually something that's been so easy for me to come to terms with, but I have had some time to, think about it, and I just want to be positive about everything. And yes, and that is one of the reasons why I am doing this video. Now, this video is not just about maybe just telling the whole world about what's going on in my life. No, it's actually because I want to also use this as an opportunity to create awareness about it, especially for pregnant women and everyone who has a pregnant person around them or who is looking after a pregnant person. And this doesn't apply to just pregnancy, it applies to everyone, because at one point or the other we might have to seek maybe professional health care, and you want to talk to professionals about something going on, something is just wrong with your health, and you're just trying to find an answer, or you're just trying to understand what exactly is going on. So yes, here we are. So in this video today, I am not sure if I'm going to be able to tell you everything, but if I am able to, then that's fine. But if this is becoming too long, then we might have to have a part 2. So, but I'm just going to start and I'm going to tell you all about it. And so let's just get on with it. Hello, my name is Blessing and I am a medical doctor currently working in the NHS. I am also a mom to a toddler, and I'm currently pregnant with I'm currently my 12th trimester of pregnancy and expecting my second child. And yes, here on this channel I just share all about my journey as a doctor, as a mom, somebody who has interest in a whole lot of things, and how I am balancing the various aspects of my life, and most importantly focusing on my growth across the various phases of my life. So if this is something that sounds like what you would want to be a part of, then feel free to join the community. And so let's just get right on into the video. So to start with, I think the first thing I want to say is, whether a pregnant or a non-pregnant person goes to see a healthcare professional, don't just assume that everybody is just going to do what is necessary. And another very important thing is, never ignore your instinct. Don't that hunch and you're just feeling like, I don't feel too good, like you're not getting it. Maybe sometimes you feel like, I don't think they're really getting what is going on with me, and I think you shouldn't ignore it. And I know that sometimes people will be like, oh, do you know my body better than me? The truth actually is, you are the one who understands your body, how you're feeling. You understand a lot of it. Although the doctors, nurses, various healthcare professionals have been trained to understand the science of the body, but at the end of the day, it's the way you feel about it should not be ignored and cannot be ignored in the course of going about your treatment. And why exactly am I saying that? That is very important in this story, because all the while in my pregnancy, nobody mentioned this particular test. I was the one who decided to ask for it, and thank God I'm in a healthcare system where if you ask for it and you think it's reasonable, you are going to be offered that test. So during one of my antenatal appointments, I told my nurse that my community midwife, that I wanted a glucose test done, and so I was offered the oral glucose test, which is usually like the ideal test for glucose in pregnancy. And so I was booked in for it, and I just said, okay, that's it. But then as the days approached, I just realized I wouldn't be able to tolerate the test. And that's because you have to fast for about 12 hours, like overnight before the test in the morning. And believe me, all those periods, I couldn't even fast for up to 6, 7 hours. The longest I had gone without food was about 6 hours. So I just told my midwife that I don't think I'll be able to fast for up to 12 hours, because if I do, I'm going to be messed up that day, and that's because I'm going to be nauseous, I'm going to be vomiting, I'm just going to be a complete mess. So I told her that I don't think I'll be able to tolerate the test. And so she was like, okay, that's fine. That if I am not going to be able to tolerate that test, then she can book me in for another type of glucose test, which actually is not the most ideal in pregnant persons, but then it's like the next appropriate option, So I said, okay, I'm fine, I'll go for that. And so she was like, okay, that at 28 weeks, when they are taking bloods for some other tests like my iron level and all of that, that she would take the test, and that was it. So fast forward to my 28 weeks appointment, and then we had the blood test, and that was it. And voila, the result actually came out to be kind of, it wasn't kind of abnormal. The result actually came out abnormal, and I was shocked, at the results, because somehow I just I'm going to explain to you why I actually requested for the test. But when the result came out, I wasn't expecting that level of abnormality, so I was a bit worried, and I knew what that meant. But let me just take you a little bit back to why I requested for this particular test. So in my last pregnancy, everything went well, there were no concerns, and I had my baby, and vaginally there were no concerns, and then life went back to normal. But about a few weeks into postpartum, I was just feeling excessively tired. I actually thought it was the usual postpartum fatigue, especially because it was just my husband and I. We didn't have anyone to help us with looking after the newborn, and it was our first, so we're kind of clueless. So it was quite stressful, and there were so many other things that happened. I wasn't lactating a lot, all of that stress, everything was just there. And I just felt, okay, I think it's just because I'm stressed, really, because I've not been able to get like significant amount of sleep since I had the baby. But as it persisted, my husband felt, babe, I think this is taking too long, that even if it's postpartum fatigue, that you are now like 2 months well into this whole postpartum thing, like your body should be adjusting, but every day you keep complaining about feeling tired. So it was like, why don't you go and see the GP and let them just do some basic tests, and if everything is fine, you're reassured, and if there's something that needs to be sorted out, then that will be done. And I was like, okay. So I went to the GP, and then they ran they did a lot of tests, like a barrage of tests, and eventually the result came out with 2 abnormalities. No, I think it was like 3. I think they said my vitamin D level was low, my iron level was low, and my sugar test was borderline. That was the first time ever in my life that I would get that report about anything that has to do with my sugar test. And also because I didn't have a family history, or so I thought, I have never worried about, sugar, glucose, things like that. So I was quite shocked when I got that result, and I just felt, okay, maybe it's just, maybe because my iron is low is also impacting on, the result, and I gave all the excuses and everything. And so they taught me about, or they just recommended all the things that I needed to do in order to ensure that my glucose was fine. And the moment you have an abnormal glucose test, you have to do like a yearly screen. So I was enrolled into that, and then they gave me iron to correct, the iron and the iron deficiency and every other thing. The vitamin D was replaced, and after a few months, life went back to normal. Then after a year, I was supposed to have another sugar test, and then I had the sugar test, and the result was still the same. That's when I just realized that, okay, I think something is actually wrong, that this is not just about pregnancy or anything. I think something is really wrong. And that was the point where I started making like changes to my life, like significant lifestyle changes. I lost a lot of weight. I became very active, physically active. I changed my diet a lot. I did a whole lot of things. And by the time I was repeating the sugar the next year, it had gone back to normal. And so I was celebrating and all of that. So because of all the drama that happened, with the sugar at that point, I was just like, now that I'm pregnant, I know that pregnancy hormones can actually mess your sugar up. That maybe I should just rule it out, like it's not going to harm anyone, just to know. And that was the reason why I actually requested for that test. And to my surprise, it actually came back abnormal. And believe me, it's actually been a lot to take in, because for maybe because, as I don't know, for ordinary people, I don't know how they process medical results, but as a doctor, when it comes to medical result, medical diagnosis, my mind always goes to the worst case scenario. And the moment I got the result, my mind had already gone to the prognosis. If you have this diagnosis in pregnancy, there's actually a higher risk of this and this and this. I was already thinking of, the worst things, and it was hard. But at some point, I just had to bring myself out of all of that. That no, definitely, I know that after pregnancy, when a person has gestational diabetes mellitus, which is the diabetes that happens only in pregnancy, usually after pregnancy, and then all the hormones, everything settles down, the sugar tends to go back to normal. But there are still some risk, because the fact that you have it means that you are at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes in the future. And so the plan is that you're going to be enrolled into the yearly screening for diabetes mellitus, and this is actually a whole lot, to take. Yeah, it's actually a whole lot to take at 30 weeks of pregnancy. And I struggled with it, really, because I actually struggled with the results. I felt, no, something is wrong. My iron is, of course, my iron came out to be very low, and they are already replacing that. I'm beginning to have some iron infusion for that. And I'm like, okay, it's probably, maybe my iron contributed to the result or something. And so I still struggled with the result. And then they were like, okay, if you're still not satisfied, there's something else they can do to finally nail the diagnosis. And so they said, they advised that I start doing monitoring my blood sugar. And so I'm currently doing what they call a 4-point glucose testing. So I have to test my glucose level like 4 times a day. And that will be when I wake up in the morning before I have any food, 1 hour after my breakfast, 1 hour after my lunch, and 1 hour after dinner. And that's currently what it is. And the thing is, if they find like 2 abnormal readings, at a particular time of the day, then they will conclude that this is the gestational diabetes mellitus and nothing else. So here we are now, and yes, I'm still all about the whole 4-point testing, and I'm really hoping that it changes something. But yeah, let's just see how that goes. And I'm definitely going to be back with the part 2 to give you guys an update of the results and what is going to be happening afterwards. So yeah, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment. Peradventure you're a mom, maybe in the course of your previous pregnancies, or you have been diagnosed with gestational diabetes mellitus. How did you react to it, and how was the whole experience for you? And yeah, did you have any complications as a result? And yeah, I just just feel free to share your thoughts. And yes, and also please put out information that will probably be helpful to any pregnant woman who is diagnosed with this condition. Let them come into the comment section and let them find tips that will actually be helpful for them, even if it's not something that will really change their their health significantly, even if it's some encouragement, some reassurance, because it's actually quite a lot. Yeah, okay, so I'll see you in another video. Bye.